In Tokyo, you can buy a brand new single detached home for about $300,000 US. You might ask, how is this possible in the city that in 2016, Monaco declared the most livable city? I know, Monaco is a British lifestyle magazine, not the UN Human Development Index where Japan ranks 20th. But still, I feel safe in saying that Tokyo is a major world city, and I think a lot of people would be surprised that a new detached home can be in reach for the average family. So I'm going to get to that housing story, but first I have to sidetrack a bit and define a few things. This video will be about buying a new home in Tokyo, a city in Japan. It's important to distinguish this because there's also the prefecture of Tokyo, or Tokyo Metropolis. A prefecture is like a state or province. Also equally important to distinguish is that we're not talking about the Tokyo metropolitan area, which includes multiple prefectures and cities and has over 30 million residents. Nope, that's not the Tokyo we're talking about either. We're talking about the 23 special wards of Tokyo that contain roughly 9 million people. In English, the wards call themselves cities, but they're closer in terms of function to what a borough of London would be. In any case, the specific ward within Tokyo I'll be looking at today is Edogawa. Side note, Edo is the old name of the city of Tokyo, and Gawa means river, so the ward name literally translates into Edo River. Edogawa City is on the eastern edge of Tokyo. If you go any further and across the Edogawa River, you'll find yourself in the prefecture of Chiba. Now you might be thinking, okay, so this place is on the outskirts of Tokyo. Well, no, not really. It's a 34-minute train ride from Mizuho Station to Shinsen Shinjuku Station, which is at the heart of Shinjuku, the major government and business district in Tokyo. It's a 14-minute train ride from Kasai Station to the literal heart of Tokyo, Nihonbashi Station, where the Nihonbashi Bridge is located. Nihon means Japan, and Bashi means bridge, so the name directly translates into Japan Bridge, and it's the point from which all distances to the capital are measured. My point with the map and distances is that depending on where you live in Edogawa and where you want to go in Tokyo, you can be anywhere from a 15 to 60-minute train ride away. Even though Edogawa is on the eastern edge, you're still very much close to the thick of things in Tokyo, not off in the boonies. And yes, you can go out to the boonies in the prefecture of Tokyo, like when I visited Okutama in the far west. Even though you can easily get to more popular parts of Tokyo from Edogawa, Edogawa is still a populous area with all the amenities you could want. You don't need to own a car. Besides commuting to work, you don't really need to leave the area if you don't want to. To get an idea of the density of Edogawa, the population is roughly 700,000, all living in 49 square kilometers. That's 13,750 people per square kilometer. To compare, the Bronx, a borough in New York, has 13,231 people per square kilometer. Although I've never been to the Bronx and can compare the feel of the neighborhoods, on paper the density as well as the proximity to major attractions are quite similar. So what does the housing look like? Let's go on a quick tour. Right now we're looking at homes that are 30 to 50 years old. Most of these homes no longer have any value, so if an owner were to sell, they'd most likely be bulldozed and rebuilt. Accordingly, it's quite common to witness demolition scenes like this. Once the homes are demolished, new ones are put in their place, and it's not uncommon for two houses to be built where there used to be one. And here's what some recently built housing looks like. Some call these pencil homes as they're tall and skinny. Not all of them are pencil-shaped though. In addition to single-family homes, there are a couple main kinds of multi-family housing. These are called apatos, which come from the word apartment. They're generally 2 or 3 story units built of wood, and they'll normally be rented by singles or couples. When people talk about cheap Japanese housing with paper-thin walls, I think this is usually the type of building they are referring to. These are called mansions, as in mansion, and despite the grand name, they're apartment buildings made of reinforced concrete. They are generally 3 or more stories, and the units will be bigger than apatos, and thus be better suited for families. Some of these buildings will be for rental, while others will be condos that are owned by individuals. Some mansions are also owned by the city and used for affordable rental housing. You'll often see many of these buildings clustered together. A dead giveaway is if you see numbers on the sides of the buildings. You might find yourself wondering, is the housing really affordable for the average earner in Japan? And if so, why? One thing you need to know is that in the past 25 years, Japan has grown in population by about 3%, whereas countries like the US and Canada have grown around 30%. After the bubble burst in Japan in the early 90s, land prices never recovered to their former peaks. It's been expected that owning a house is not an investment, but a depreciating asset. In recent years, pricing has leveled out and even grown in Tokyo. But with the population of Tokyo set to decline in the future, property value growth is far away from being certain. Despite the precipitous drop in housing prices after the bubble, land is still expensive in Tokyo. For example, this plot of land in Edogawa is roughly worth $3,000 a square meter. Where I used to live in Burnaby, a city in Metro Vancouver, it's about $2,500 a square meter, so fairly comparable. However, since lot sizes in Burnaby can be from 5 to 10 times the size of those in Edogawa, the density in Burnaby is only 2,464 people per square kilometer. Edogawa is 5 times as dense, which is a big reason why homes in Edogawa can be in reach for the average household. If you want a single detached house where I used to live, it's go big or no home. A tricky part when talking about affordable is that you need to define exactly who it's affordable for. The median annual household income in Japan is $37,000. In comparison, it's $41,000 in Canada and $44,000 in the US. By the way, this median stat means that half the families make more than that amount and half make less. Now that $37,000 number is for the whole of Japan. In Edogawa, it's $43,000. What can a family making that afford? The maximum borrowable amount, with no down deposit, is about $300,000. With 15% down, that number bumps up to $350,000. On the really cheap and small end for single new detached housing, you can get in for a bit over $200,000. However, I'd say low end is more like $300,000, with mid-range going for about $400,000. Custom and/or concrete housing will most likely be over $500,000. The biggest factor in home pricing is almost always the land, which is about 70% of the price, but of course that really depends on the location. Let's talk about mortgages. Beyond the sticker price, the real cost of a home includes the interest that you'll pay on a mortgage over the years. Interest rates are always changing, but let me say that you can rather easily get a variable rate of 1% in Japan right now. The Japanese government also supports a flat 35 loan, which means you can lock in a fixed percentage for up to 35 years. Depending on your down deposit, bank, and length of loan, the rate can be anywhere from 1 to 2%. On a $300,000 house, a 1% interest rate for a 35-year mortgage is $850 a month. At a 3% rate, the monthly payment becomes $1,150 a month, a 35% increase. So yeah, interest rates make a huge difference. Let's talk about zoning. This is the part where I have to give props to Japan's zoning laws. In Japan, the zoning laws for buildings are prescribed at a national level, which all municipalities have to follow. They can make some exceptions, but by and large, they have to follow what the national government dictates. And the zoning laws are rather straightforward. There are 12 zones, the first one being a type of residential zone. Each subsequent zone allows for more and bigger types of buildings. It goes like this all the way up to heavy industrial zones for things like factories or gas refineries. The magic in the zoning laws is that whatever is allowed in Zone 1 is also allowed in the following zones. With some exceptions, you can build residential housing anywhere. You can also run small businesses, like a little cafe within your home, right in residential areas. This is called mixed use, and this means that there's nothing stopping someone from opening up a small shop in a residential neighborhood. So that's why you can generally walk to a convenient or grocery store and get most of your daily needs without owning a car. Once you get into the more dense zones, you see the mixed use come even more into play. This is where you can have a big 20-story condominium next to a single detached home. Everything is fair game as long as you follow the rules on how big a portion of the lot the building can sit on, how tall it can be, and how much light you can block. Not only that, you can also end up being able to build on really small parcels of land. The minimum legal street frontage for a house is 2 meters, enough width for a car to be parked on the block. So while land is expensive in Tokyo, the ability to purchase small parcels of land makes it possible for the middle class to own a home, whether it be a condo or a single detached house. From walking around the neighborhood and seeing all the new starts, The minimum parcel of land for a 3 or 4 LDK seems to be around 60 square meters, or about 650 square feet. After scanning through the pile of new home flyers I picked up, I'd say the average is about 1/3 more than that in size. So think 80 square meters, or about 860 square feet. Something interesting about the plots of land is that since they are not necessarily perfect squares or rectangles, the amount of usable space depends on the shape. In that way, a 75 square meter lot may be as practically useful as a 60 square meter one, and you'll see lots of dissimilar sizes right next to each other priced the same. The Financial Times talks about why Tokyo is the land of rising home construction, but not prices. Takahiko Noguchi, head of planning section in Minato Ward, explains why. There is no legal restraint on demolishing a building, he says. People have the right to use their land, so basically neighboring people have no right to stop development. Right, so provided you follow zoning regulations, you're A-OK to build. Whoa, what's with the 80s music? I was thinking the same thing myself. I mean, I was born in the 80s. Maybe it's my subconscious trying to bring me back to a time where my father in his 20s could afford a new home and support the entire family on his wage alone. Ah, the good old days. But back on topic, I'm sure you must be wondering, is Tokyo or Japan really a good place to live? And maybe you're thinking, the houses you showed didn't even have yards, and aren't they small and cramped? Also, you may have heard that in Japan, homes only last 30 years, and there are tons of abandoned buildings. Yeah, I hear ya. I'm making videos that talk about those topics and also have some new home tours to show you. Hang tight. In the meantime, feel free to ask some questions in the comment section. And before I forget, I want to give a shout out to all those who support these mini docs through Patreon. Thank you so much. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the flip side.